Episode 1. The Wedding That Wasn't Mine. In a world where love often turns into betrayal, and loyalty is buried beneath lies, some women break, others burn. But one woman chose to rise with a plan sharpened like a dagger. This isn't a story of heartbreak. This is vengeance draped in silk and smiles. Welcome to The Revenge Wife. The roses were red, the cake was white, and the bride was radiant. But I wasn't the one wearing the veil. I watched from the back row, half hidden behind my sunglasses, as Weston kissed his new wife. Her name was Camille. She was tall, elegant, and utterly clueless. I almost pitied her because 3 years ago, I was the woman Ethan had promised forever to. Until he destroyed me. I gave him everything. My heart, my youth, my loyalty. And he gave me betrayal in return. A mistress. Lies. A sudden divorce that left me hollow and shamed. But I wasn't going to disappear quietly. After the ceremony, I lingered in the shadows of the marble-floored hall, watching their first dance. My fingers traced the outline of the necklace. Ethan once gave me the same one. He now gifted to her, thinking I wouldn't notice. Pathetic. I wasn't there to cry. I was there to begin. You see, revenge doesn't always come with screaming or blood. Sometimes, it comes with lipstick, secrets, and the slow unraveling of everything someone holds dear. I had spent months studying Camille's life, learning her habits, her fears, her past. I knew more about her than Ethan did. I wasn't going to steal her husband back. I was going to make her wish she'd never met him. The first step? Befriend her. It was easier than I expected. 2 days later, I accidentally bumped into her at a charity gala, champagne in hand, dazzling in a red dress he once begged me to wear. I smiled and introduced myself as someone new, someone better, someone named Eliza. Camille was gracious, sweet even. She didn't recognize me, why would she? I had changed. My hair, my face, my aura. Grief and betrayal will do that to a woman. By the end of the night, she'd given me her number. By the end of the week, we were having lunch. And by the end of the month, I was her best friend. She had no idea she was inviting the devil to dinner. And Ethan? He never looked twice. Not yet. But he would. They both would. Because I'm not just the ex-wife. I'm the revenge wife. Episode 2. Tea, secrets, and a little poison. Camille loved Earl Grey. She claimed it calmed her nerves. I preferred black coffee, bitter, honest. Impossible to sweeten into something it wasn't. Just like me. We sat at a sunny little cafe downtown, legs crossed, sunglasses on, pretending to be just another pair of stylish strangers, chatting about fashion and husbands. Except, only one of us knew this friendship was a lie. I swear, sometimes Ethan is just impossible. Camille laughed, stirring honey into her tea. He gets so distant. Do all men do that? I tilted my head. Sometimes it means they're hiding something. She blinked. You think he's cheating? My smile didn't reach my eyes. Oh, I didn't say that. But if he were, wouldn't you want to know? She hesitated. I trust him. Poor, sweet Camille. She didn't know trust was the first casualty in love. But I wasn't ready to ruin her yet. No, I wanted her to fall deeper into the illusion. The more she leaned on me, the sweeter her fall would be. I fed her carefully crafted stories of fake exes and distant lovers, sowing seeds of suspicion disguised as concern. Camille grew attached to me quickly, almost too quickly. She invited me to dinners, to fittings, even to a private spa day in their mansion. I smiled through it all, taking mental notes. The house was exactly as I remembered it, though her touch was everywhere now. New drapes, new scents, a woman's attempt to cover a history that would never truly leave. She showed me their wedding album, her fingers grazing Ethan's picture like he was some fragile dream. Do you ever feel like you're not enough for someone? She asked, eyes distant. I placed a hand on hers. Everyone feels that. But if you ever doubt his love, trust your gut. It's rarely wrong. I could see the flicker of fear in her eyes. Good. Let it grow. Later, I found Ethan alone in his study, half drunk, scrolling through old photos. Our photos, my photo. He didn't notice me. Or maybe he did and didn't care. Either way, I whispered just loud enough. Some ghosts wear perfume, Ethan. His head snapped up, but I was already gone. The game had begun. Episode 3. The Diary of Camille Weston. The Weston mansion had always been a fortress, marble floors, high-tech security, and silence that echoed money. But even the most secure walls have cracks. And secrets, they love cracks. Camille invited me for another sleepover, one of her new little traditions. We drank wine in silk robes, painted each other's nails, and shared stories that were meant to bond women. Except I was never here for bonding. After she fell asleep, curled up with her nightly lavender mist and innocence, I slipped out of bed and into the hallway. I knew exactly where I was going. Ethan's office was locked, of course, but his habits hadn't changed. The spare key was still tucked in the ceramic vase by the second bookshelf. Predictable men make the best victims. Inside, I found the past waiting for me. Our wedding photo was gone, but the same mahogany desk, same whiskey decanter, same drawer that once held our prenup remained. This time, I wasn't looking for legal papers. I found something better. A leather-bound journal. Camille's hidden, but not, well, stupid. Or maybe desperate. I opened it, careful not to leave fingerprints. January 12th. He came home late again. Said it was work. He always says that. I wonder if he's hiding something. February 4th. Eliza is the only one I feel safe with. She gets me. She understands Ethan's moods. I trust her. My lips curled. April 2nd. Sometimes I think Ethan still loves someone else. He gets this look in his eyes like he's haunted. Haunted? Oh, darling. He is. But the best part wasn't the doubts. It was the entry she wrote the day before our first tea. March 17th. I saw a woman who looked like someone from Ethan's past. I think she's called Alina. I only saw her once, in an old photo. I closed the book and returned it to its place. She didn't know it yet, but she was seeing me more clearly than most. Camille suspected something. Good. Let her unravel, one suspicion at a time. Back in the guest room, I slipped under the covers and faced the ceiling. My plan wasn't just working. It was blooming, twisted, and beautiful. Ethan was drowning in memories. Camille was suffocating in doubt. And me? I was just getting started. Episode 4. His eyes remember me. The first time Ethan looked at me again, really looked at me, it was in the garden. Camille was pruning her roses, and I was sipping a glass of white wine, pretending not to notice him on the balcony. But I felt his stare like a burn against my skin. His expression flickered, recognition dancing with confusion. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. Fitting, considering I'd buried the woman he once loved beneath layers of Eliza. I turned, offered a polite smile, and went back to sipping. That night, he texted me. A known number. Who are you? I stared at the message for a long time before replying. Eliza, a friend of your wife's. Is there a problem, Mr. Weston? His reply was silence. The most honest answer he could give. The next day, Camille invited me to a gallery opening downtown. She clung to my arm like I was her anchor while Ethan stayed 5 steps behind. Quiet. Eyes sharp. Jaw clenched. He hadn't said a word to me since the text, but the way his gaze swept over me, it was clear. He remembered every curve of my face, every tone in my voice, every scar he left behind. I leaned into Camille's ear during the exhibit. Your husband's quite the brooder, isn't he? She laughed nervously. He's just stressed. Big merger next week. I offered her a knowing glance. Just make sure stress doesn't lead him into someone else's bed. She stiffened. Exactly the reaction I wanted. Later that night, I slipped into the powder room and found him waiting outside when I emerged. The hallway was dim. Empty, just us. Alina, he breathed. My real name. A name I hadn't heard in 2 years. I tilted my head. You must be mistaken. He stepped closer. Why are you doing this? I leaned in, lips just inches from his. Doing what? I know it's you, he said, eyes full of something between regret and fear. What do you want? I smiled, soft and slow. I want to be your wife's best friend. He looked like he might explode, but I didn't give him the chance. I brushed past him, heels echoing, perfume lingering. Let him choke on the scent of what he lost. Let him wonder how deep this game really went. Because this wasn't about being seen. It was about being remembered. Episode 5. The fracture. I didn't have to lift a single finger to break Camille. Just words, carefully placed. The kind that look innocent on the surface, but worm their way into the cracks of a fragile mind. We were having lunch at an uptown bistro when I asked the question that would shift her entire world. Have you ever been married before? She blinked. Me? No. I laughed lightly. Not you, Ethan. She paused. Her fork hovered mid-air. No, at least, I don't think so. He never mentioned it. I sipped my wine. Strange. I could have sworn I saw an old article once about Ethan Weston in some private wedding. Years ago, before you two met. She was quiet the rest of the meal. I never told her more. Didn't need to. That single doubt was enough to detonate everything. By the end of the week, she was going through Ethan's drawers, checking old emails, scanning unfamiliar names in his contact list. She never found mine, because I had made sure of that. Meanwhile, Ethan grew restless. He kept his distance, but I could feel the pressure building. The way he clenched his jaw when I was near. The glances he threw when Camille wasn't looking. He was trying to solve a puzzle he didn't realize he was still a part of. One night, after another fake girls' night, Camille opened up. I think Ethan's hiding something. I leaned in, feigning surprise. Why would you say that? She hesitated, then reached into her purse and pulled out a photo. A wedding photo. One that wasn't hers. It was crumpled at the edge. Grainy, but I knew the moment. It was my wedding. Our wedding. Before the lies. Before the betrayal. She whispered, "Do you know her?" I looked at my own face, tilted my head, and said softly, "No, but she looks heartbroken." Camille nodded. That's what scares me. She was breaking. I could see it. Feel it. And I was right there beside her, holding the pieces, while planting more fractures. My plan was no longer just working. It was perfect. And soon, Ethan Weston would regret the day he ever chose to lie to me. Episode 6. The mistake he made twice. He followed me. I felt his presence long before I turned the corner near the hotel lobby, where I had booked a room for the night under the name Eliza Vale. Just far enough from the Weston's mansion, but close enough to make Ethan lose sleep. I kept walking, pretending not to notice, until his hand caught my arm. "Alina," he hissed, dragging me toward the alley beside the building. "You're destroying her." I faced him, cold as moonlight. "You mean like how you destroyed me?" His jaw clenched. "You don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," I snapped, yanking my arm away. "You made a mistake. Then you replaced me. Then you pretended I never existed." He looked away, ashamed. But shame wasn't enough. "Not for what he did. She doesn't deserve this," he muttered. "She didn't take you from me," I said. "You gave yourself to her. She's just collateral." "You don't want revenge," he whispered. "You want me to suffer." "Yes," I said. "Exactly." He stared at me, and for a moment, I saw something crack in him. Guilt, fear, maybe even longing. But I didn't care. I stepped closer. Just close enough to let my perfume wrap around him like smoke. "You could have told her," I murmured. "About me. About us. But you didn't. You lied. Again. Because I thought I'd moved on." I leaned in. "You didn't." Then I walked away, leaving him standing there haunted, shaken, drowning. Back at the hotel, I took out Camille's diary again. I'd made a copy, a backup, insurance. Because while she was unraveling emotionally, I needed her to break publicly. One more push, one more doubt. So I sent her a message from an anonymous account. Unknown. Ask him about Alina. Ask him why he buried her. It was cryptic, poetic, cruel, perfect. 2 hours later, I received a message from Camille. "Camille, can we talk? Please. I need you." I stared at the screen and smiled. She was finally where I wanted her, isolated, and about to learn that the woman she trusted most was the very reason her world was burning. Episode 7. The lie that saved him once. Camille looked like a ghost, pale, shaken, fingers trembling around her mug as we sat in her sun-drenched kitchen. She hadn't slept. Her mascara clung to her lashes like dried tears. I asked him, she whispered, about Alina. I tilted my head, and she swallowed. He said she was a mistake. I smiled inside. Did he say what kind of mistake? She hesitated. He said it was a short marriage, a fling, that she used him. Oh, Ethan, still rehearsing the same tired lie. He always had a flair for making himself the victim. But it worked. Camille's doubt was real, but it hadn't turned to hate, not yet. I could see her clinging to the story, desperate for it to be true. He told me he didn't love her, she added, eyes pleading, that he married her out of guilt after she lost her parents. I leaned back, letting that sting settle. He was rewriting history now, using my pain as a cover for his cowardice. How noble. But why wouldn't he tell me sooner? Camille asked. Because some ghosts don't like to be disturbed, I said softly. And Ethan, he buries things, Camille. You just didn't know where to dig. She looked down, twisting her wedding band. I reached across the table and took her hand. You're not wrong for asking questions. He owes you the truth, not just pieces. She nodded, eyes wet. I think I need to see her. I blinked. Who? Alina. Just once. I need to look her in the eyes and know she's not what he says she is. My lips parted. For a moment, the irony stole my breath. You don't think that might be dangerous? I asked. She shook her head. Not if I bring you with me. You're the only one I trust. The twist nearly made me laugh. She wanted me to help her confront myself. And I would. I'd take her on that journey, all the way to the truth she thought she wanted. And when we got there, I'd leave her in the wreckage of what she'd begged to see. Because the past Ethan buried wasn't just alive. It was sitting across from her, smiling sweetly. Episode 8. Meeting myself in the mirror. Camille stood in front of the old townhouse, a bundle of nerves and cashmere and perfume. This is where she lived? She asked, glancing up at the crumbling brick. I nodded. According to public records, it had once been mine. Before Ethan, before the betrayal. Now it was just an empty shell I rented for the day. Furnished just enough to look lived in, just enough to play the scene. Inside, the walls were lined with hints of a fabricated woman, old books, melancholy art, a framed photo of two people on a beach, not us, but close enough in shadow. I had even lit a candle that smelled like jasmine, the scent Ethan used to say reminded him of me. Camille stepped in cautiously, as if expecting Alina to be hiding behind the drapes. She's not here, she whispered. She hasn't lived here in a while, I replied. But maybe she left something behind. I handed her a stack of letters, fake ones I had written in trembling, poetic cursive. Each page hinted at a woman discarded, used, and tossed aside. A woman who loved too deeply and lost everything. To a man who didn't know how to stay. Camille read in silence, her knuckles whitening. When she looked up, there were tears in her eyes. He lied to me. I stayed silent. She loved him. She really loved him. And he just moved on? I stepped closer. That's what men like Ethan do. They survive, even when they leave the rest of us bleeding. Camille hugged the letters to her chest like they were sacred. And then she said it. I want to meet her. I looked into her eyes, letting the truth burn just behind my mask. You already have. She frowned. What? I didn't want you to find out like this, I said, voice soft as silk. But I'm not just Eliza. I took a step back and let the name fall like thunder. I'm Alina. Her face broke. No, that's not. You lied to me. No more than your husband did. Her hands shook. Why would you do this? Because the truth has a way of demanding a stage, I said, calm, composed. And I'm done hiding behind curtains. Camille stepped back like I'd struck her. The room was dead quiet. And then she ran. Out the door. Into the car. Gone. I stood there in the silence she left behind. She had seen the truth, and it had shattered her. Perfect. Episode 9. Camille's silence. Camille didn't call, didn't text, didn't show up for brunch, spa day, or her usual morning posts flaunting a perfect life. She vanished, which meant one thing. She was crumbling. I imagined her in that oversized bedroom, staring at Ethan, wondering who he really was. Wondering who I really was. Wondering how she could have let a viper slither into her home and coil so tightly around her life. I gave her 3 days of silence. On the 4th, she finally broke. A knock came at my hotel room door. I opened it slowly, already knowing who it was. Camille stood there, mascara streaked, lips trembling, anger barely restrained. You used me, she said. I didn't deny it. I trusted you, she hissed. I nodded. And now you understand what betrayal tastes like. She slapped me. The sting across my cheek was nothing compared to the one I had carried in my heart for years. You came into my home. You slept under my roof. You smiled at me while you planned to ruin everything. I didn't ruin anything, I said calmly. I just held up a mirror. Tears welled in her eyes. I loved him. I still do. Then you're weaker than I thought. That broke her. She sank into the nearest chair like the weight of it all finally crushed her spine. I didn't know, she whispered. I didn't know he was married before. I didn't know what he did to you. No one ever does, I said, crouching before her. That's the beauty of a man like Ethan Weston. He doesn't just rewrite the story, he burns the old pages. She stared at me with bloodshot eyes. What now? I rose slowly. Now, you decide. Decide what? Whether you want to be the woman he keeps or the woman who takes everything from him. Silence. And then, how? She whispered. A slow smile formed on my lips. Finally, the wife was ready for revenge. Episode 10. How to Bury a Man Alive. Camille arrived at my hotel suite with no makeup, a plain hoodie, and her hair tied back. She looked nothing like the pristine socialite the world knew. She looked like a woman ready for war. Teach me, she said. I poured us both a glass of wine. It starts with truth, but not yours, his. She narrowed her eyes. You want me to get him to confess? I shook my head. No, you're going to make him prove what kind of man he is. In public, where he can't run. I slid a folder across the table, documents, emails, photos, even a video clip I'd held onto like a relic of pain. Proof of what he did to me, of the company funds he'd used to cover up his betrayal, of the woman he left in the ashes. Her fingers trembled as she flipped through it. This could ruin him. Exactly, I said. But first, he has to deserve it. So we set the trap. Camille played the dutiful wife again, sweet smiles, soft kisses, dinners cooked to perfection. She asked him about his day, about Alina. She watched his lies twist around his tongue, curling like smoke in the air. And she recorded every word. I never loved her, he told her one night, sipping scotch in his office. She was a mistake I had to clean up. Click. The audio was saved. The next morning, Camille sent me the file. Mistake I had to clean up. How poetic. And utterly damning. We released it anonymously through a whistleblower site linked to corporate corruption scandals. Paired it with financial records showing how Ethan funneled money through shell accounts to bury my existence and to boost Camille's fake lifestyle as a power couple. It exploded. By afternoon, his name was trending. By evening, the board of directors had called an emergency meeting. By night, his entire kingdom teetered on collapse. And the best part? He still didn't know who pulled the trigger. But he would, because by tomorrow, the world would learn the name he tried so hard to erase. Alina Weston. And he would finally understand that the past doesn't stay buried. It rises. And it burns. Episode 11. The Collapse. Ethan's empire began to crumble with terrifying speed. Emails leaked. Board members whispered. Investors panicked. Camille stayed at my side, her eyes sharp, the fire of revenge blazing brighter every day. He called her once, desperate, pleading. Camille, you have to stop this. I can fix it. She laughed. Fix it? You fixed me the moment you lied. He tried to threaten, to manipulate. But Camille was no longer the wife who swallowed his lies. She had become my partner in this dance of destruction. Meanwhile, Ethan sought me out. You've gone too far, he snarled, his cold facade cracking. I've only just begun, I said. He wasn't just fighting to save his company. He was fighting to save his reputation, his marriage, his life. But the poison had seeped too deep. Camille confronted him, handing him divorce papers, her voice steady but cold. You destroyed our trust. You lost me the moment you chose her over me. Ethan's eyes flickered with regret. Or was it fear? Either way, it was too late. The man who once thought he could bury me had only buried himself. Episode 12. The Reckoning. The boardroom was icy, the air thick with tension as Ethan stood facing his directors. His empire was bleeding, and the wounds were raw. I resign, he said flatly. Shock rippled through the room. Camille watched from the back, her eyes cold steel. The wife who once was had vanished, replaced by a woman forged in fire and betrayal. I sat beside her, silent but victorious. Outside, cameras flashed as the news broke. Weston was stepping down, forced out by scandal. But the real victory was personal. Camille turned to me that night, a faint smile breaking through her exhaustion. "Thank you," she said. "No," I replied. "Thank you. You were braver than I ever expected." We weren't friends, not yet. But in that moment, two women who had been torn apart by the same man found an uneasy truce. Because revenge is not just about destruction. It's about reclaiming power. Episode 13. Ashes and New Beginnings. The days after Ethan's fall were quiet, almost surreal. Camille and I moved through the aftermath, like ghosts scavenging pieces of ourselves from the wreckage he'd left behind. She started therapy. I started rebuilding my life, this time on my own terms. But the past has a habit of clawing back. Ethan's name faded from headlines, but the scars remained. One evening, Camille called me. "Alina, I'm scared." I could hear the tremor in her voice. Of what? Of him. Of what he might do next. I thought for a moment. Then we don't wait. We act. Together, we plan the final move, not just to destroy Ethan, but to make sure he could never hurt either of us again. Because the best revenge isn't just punishment. It's freedom. Episode 14. The final play. Ethan was desperate. Desperation makes people dangerous. Camille and I anticipated his moves, laying traps like chess masters. He tried threats, lawsuits, even public smears, but we were ready. One evening, a secret meeting. I arrived first, heart pounding. Ethan appeared no longer the untouchable titan, but a man stripped bare. He pleaded, begged for forgiveness. But I only shook my head. "No," I said. "This isn't about you anymore." Camille joined me, strength in her eyes. "This is about us," she said, "about taking back our lives." We handed him the terms: permanent silence, financial restitution, and the severance of all TIs. He signed. We walked away, not broken, not beaten, but free. Episode 15. Freedom's Fire. The courtroom was packed, cameras flashing like lightning, the air electric with anticipation. Weston's final attempt to claw back his empire had crumbled. This time, there was no smokescreen, no lies. Camille and I stood side by side, no longer rivals, no longer enemies, but allies forged in fire. The judge's gavel struck. Case dismissed. The plaintiff is ordered to pay all legal fees. Ethan's face drained of color. The man who once ruled with arrogance now knelt in defeat. Outside, reporters swarmed. Camille turned to me, eyes shining. "We did it!" I smiled, heart swelling with a fierce kind of peace. "This is more than revenge," I said. "This is rebirth." We walked away from the chaos, the chains of the past shattered at our feet. For the first time in years, I breathed freely. I was no longer Alina Weston, the forgotten wife, the discarded shadow. I was Alina, strong, unbroken, free. And this was only the beginning. The scars remain, but they don't define me anymore. Camille and I, once strangers bound by betrayal, found strength in each other. Ethan is gone from our lives, a ghost of a man haunted by his own mistakes. And me? I am no longer a shadow. I am the light, the fire that refused to be extinguished, the revenge wife who reclaimed her life and her soul.